Arcade Heroes.
Greetings, it's Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com, and this is part 2 of why do arcades tend to have a lot of redemption games on their game floors. And I wanted to get to these points in that last video as to why they earn more money. If you missed that video, there's a link here as well as into the description. And in that I spend most of the time talking about earnings and whatnot, and it's more of a test report or location earnings report video, I guess, at the end of the day. But it does show how redemption really makes a lot more money than your video games. But again, I wanted to get into a little bit more detail as to the games themselves. What is it about those games that makes them earn so much better? But I realized I was droning on a bit too long about the earnings reports and all that stuff, so we'll just do it in a separate video here. So the easiest explanation as to why redemption tends to earn better than video games or non-redemption, non-ticket games is that the throughput is a lot faster. If you look at the average time that can be spent on a video game, it can vary quite a bit. If you're talking about older games, I mean, especially skill-based older games, it can be, well, an hour. Say, if you're really, really good at Miss Pac-Man, you can just keep going for a long time. But somebody who's new at something might die relatively quickly. I mean, they can die within 30 seconds. I've seen that happen where I have a Darius Burst, another Chronicle. I've seen people get excited about how cool it looks, put their coins in, and then they lose all their lives before they've gotten past like the first 10 enemies. But skill-based players will generally last a bit longer, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or as I mentioned, on certain older games you can last for a very long time. Back in the early 80s, when you had games like Asteroids and Space Invaders and stuff like that, where people learned some tricks, I think the record is something close to 3 days, and I'm surprised an arcade would stay open that long, but it must have been generating a lot of business, a lot of interest, people coming in to watch that player try and set that high score. Yeah, if you're really, really good and knew all the tricks at it, sure, you could get by. But redemption generally doesn't have those shortcuts. Redemption is generally very, very quick. And now this can vary a little bit. I mean, some of the redemption games will have timers on them as well, just to make sure that people don't spend too much time on them. They don't want that. And so like prize merchandisers and crane machines in particular generally have only 30 seconds that it gives you. And stuff like skee ball may only take a minute or less, but that can depend on how quickly you throw the balls into it. I believe those have timers as well in case the operator wants to just make it stop and not go on forever. But this is particularly noticeable with what are called quick coin games. Quick coin games are where you put your coin is essentially the controller. You put it in the slot and it'll usually go down like a ramp or something, and you try and hit a target. And so like coin pushers are kind of quick coin games as well. You can just dump tons of coins or credits. These days, since so many arcades have switched over to card systems, they have to modify these quick coin games so that they have this auto firing kind of mechanism. And I've also seen changes in redemption games, the mechanical ones in particular, to be better suited towards card systems. But it still allows for a very quick, like, swipe your card, coin fires, it's done within 10 seconds or less. And the, I guess you could say, addictive dopamine hit nature, as I mentioned on a comment to this video on LinkedIn, redemption's always essentially been like the TikTok of amusement, as it's just very quick dopamine hits, not focusing on a lot of time. And as many people also commented on the other video, it's essentially, well, it uses some of the same sorts of ideas behind gambling. And now, of course, that opens up a wider debate. Is this really gambling, or arcades become kiddie casinos? I know there have been lawsuits filed in California before against, I think it was Chuck E. Cheese, that alleged as such, and that they should be treated as casinos. But as far as I'm aware, those did not go anywhere. They might have been dismissed. But that's how a lot of people feel about it, especially adults who maybe have been to a casino and know how casino gaming works. And then you go to a ticket redemption sort of thing, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of similarities here. And so with that and that fast throughput, it becomes, I guess, somewhat addictive because you're trying to get that prize. I mean, no, you're not trying to get cash from a typical redemption one. I mean, somebody might have modified some redemption machines out there to hand out cash, and this has been an issue with coin pushers before. There have been some states, the last time I heard was Oklahoma, had banned coin pushers. They might have reinstated them since I heard this. This is like over 10 years now, but I remember when they banned coin pushers and then went out to places and destroyed them. Here where I'm at in Utah, this is has some of the strictest anti-gambling laws in the United States. I think just Utah and Hawaii are some of the strictest, where we don't even have a lottery. That's how strict that is. But a couple of years ago, there were these coin pushers and some other quick coin games but mainly coin pushers, that were handing out cash. And the state got wind of that and closed them down. And so, yeah, that again becomes a little bit of a sketchy area. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak to that. It's just this is what's happened out there towards those things. But do I foresee ticket redemption in general ever getting banned nationwide, or even a state banning it? Probably not. It does not generate quite as much revenue as a casino, and again, where you don't have cash being played for in most situations, it's just not considered quite the same, but some of the elements that draw people into it are the same. And so I guess take it for what you will as to the morality of that. And I guess I'm never been interested in gambling either. As I mentioned in the other video, I've never really been interested in redemption because it's just not appealing to me. To me, it's not really a game, and just the focus is to get the tickets, to get the prizes. And yeah, again, I just never was really into that. I was more into trying to get a high score, trying to finish a game, unlocking new elements of the game, content, stuff like that, as I suppose most regular gamers would be. Now, of course, when it comes to replay value on redemption games, the tickets, the prizes, the potential there is the replay value. That feeds into the dopamine hit that I just talked about. But another thing that helps buoy up redemption, I mean, it really does help the entire arcade, but more so redemption would be card systems. As a lot more facilities have switched over to card systems, they've been able to dump physical tickets and just put everything on the card, e-tickets. And this reduces waste, as well as the need to be lugging around 10,000 tickets for a kid, which maybe some kids would enjoy doing that, or adults, but it is a lot more convenient to just simply have everything on a card there. And just since card systems naturally cause more to be spent in an arcade, that helps. But it's like, it helps the redemption as much as the video, but again, probably more so the redemption. Another thing is that there's this weird difference between video and redemption, in that redemption games often are single-player titles, whereas when you have a video game as a single-player title, it doesn't perform well at all. Video games always do better when there are at least 2 players, if not 4. And of course, with racing games, you do get up to 4 linked most of the time, sometimes 8, although it's rare that you'll come across a location that has 8 of the same machine linked together. But you may come across locations that have lots of redemption games, even though they may not even link together. Now, sometimes there are these marquees that will sit above the games and that will link them in the sense of offering this progressive bonus. And so that has become more common, as has integrating at least 2 player stations into the same machine. Like most of Andamiro's stuff does this now with their SpongeBob SquarePants stuff and the Spider-Man the Spider-Man Web Slinger, I almost said Avengers, game where it has 2 sides. Really, you're not playing against each other. It's all integrated into the same cabinet. Again, one player playing may cause the bonus to go up if they don't get it for the other player, but it's still in essence a single player game. You're not like cooperating together, so to speak. But that does drive redemption play too, especially when you have a bunch of units banked together, perhaps a giant bonus that you can get by playing those together. That works. But even if they aren't linked, just having banked single player games together oftentimes fosters some competition between people to see who can get more tickets. Now, this can work with video games. It's just we don't have too many single player games out there other than, like, say, you have your racers, which again you can link and you always want to link those, and so it's rare that you would come across, say, a Mario Kart arcade or Cruisin' Blast that's just sitting there by itself. Yeah, it can happen, but it's just not very common because that means the game's definitely going to earn a lot less. And I see that too when a gun fails on one of my games like Jurassic Park and there's only one gun working. In that sense, it just stops earning well because it's half of its potential earning power is there. Now, one thing that was brought up in the other video is that redemption is not something you can get at home. Now, I would say that for the video games, this is more common than it used to be, in that there are still a lot of arcade exclusive games out there. And one reason why the industry focuses so much on light gun games and racing games is because even if they do port the software over to the console, say like Cruisin' Blast, you still don't get those arcade controls. You don't get that sound system that envelops you, that makes it a bit better. Even say if you have a gaming chair, it's just not the same compared to what an arcade cabinet can do. And so there's still that, but the general perception is that, well, video games I have at home, and so people will just make a blanket assumption and maybe not realize that even in instances where there is a port or something like, say, I have a Minecraft Dungeons here, the gameplay is completely different for the arcade version than what you find at home. But I have overheard people approaching the game, or say a dad with his kids or mom with her kids, and the kids want to play it, but they'll say, but we have Minecraft at home. Now, with Redemption, you don't really get that. Now, yeah, you could have something licensed, but still, you can't get an electromechanical Redemption game at home. You can get some of the video games. A lot of the Redemption games are ports from mobile games, or they're very similar to mobile games, but it's still not something that you easily replicate at home. Or like I just had somebody play the duck catcher crane that we have here. You know, it's a physical prize that you can get right now, and your Xbox or your PlayStation or your Switch can't give somebody a physical prize right there. And so in that aspect, Redemption's able to do something that is harder for arcades to communicate. Like, again, arcades generally have the controls as their exclusive addition, but oftentimes they'll still have the software that's exclusive too. But with Redemption, everything about it, it's just like, you know, that's not going to be ported to any sort of console or get into emulation, or if anything did, if somebody created a virtual version of the Redemption game, like there are skee-ball games, and there has been a thing since the pandemic of playing a crane machine online. And I recently saw that Bandai Namco was testing out some idea like that. So like you could use your phone to play a crane machine that's located somewhere, and like the camera would show if you win the prize, and then they would mail you the prize or something like that. So that's kind of the closest you can get to it. But when you're just replicating an electromechanical game virtually on a mobile device or a game console, it's just not the same. Or like if you win digital prizes in the arcade, again, it's just not the same, doesn't have that same kind of appeal. And speaking of prizes, it also comes down to the right prizes, with whether it's the redemption prize desk or if it's in a merchandiser. And this is something I touched on last time, that also drives extra play there, and that makes it easy for redemption games to change things out. Whereas video games, oftentimes the content never changes, and so once people are used to the game or they've already beat it, they may not want to come back for more, because unfortunately the video side of the industry has decided that they're not going to do timed unlocks or experience unlocks like they used to, especially with fighting games. And another thing that annoys me is just how often we don't see secrets in games anymore, like finding a secret area, something like that, that would drive people to say, oh, there's some fun secrets in here, maybe I should play this game again. And now, of course, video games have their ways of getting replay value, but again, it's a lot easier to do and a lot more appealing to younger audiences with ticket redemption than it is with video games. And again, when it comes down to arcade operators like myself, most are just looking at the money. And when you look at just the hard numbers, well, what's easiest, what's most profitable? It's the ticket redemption. Now, again, I don't like that as a gamer, but that's just the business reality of it. So what do you think? Is there anything I missed as to what makes redemption earn better from the game itself compared to video games? Or is there something else that you think that video games can do to increase their profitability? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next video.